Hey there. It's no secret that fundraising as a startup founder is very hard, perhaps even more so being a solo immigrant founder with no prior connections before I came to this country. It is hard for a lot of reasons, and I'm not putting myself in a position where it's harder for me, but I truly believe that it is hard for everybody. It's hard for women founders, it's hard for founders who are not from this country, and so on. Now, why is that? Theoretically speaking, it's not surprising. It's a demand and supply. There are more startups than there are VC funds, and so it goes to reason that not every startup is going to get funded. Not every startup will get the financial resources that it needs to achieve a break-even point, to achieve a point where they can launch a product and generate enough revenue to support their growth, and so on. It's not a surprise. But what I have experienced over the last 3 years that I have, since I've launched my startup, where I have raised more than $1.5 million, I have a revenue generating startup. It does burn cash. My startup does spend more money than it earns in revenue, and hence the VC funding and the angel funding that I've raised has been able to support the growth of my startup. It has given us enough flexibility to try and keep trying different aspects, launching new products, launching new customer acquisition strategies, which otherwise would not have been possible in the normal course of action. And that is a great thing about the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the US, because that's where my experience is, where if you have a good idea and you are meritorious, you are hardworking, you have integrity, and you have a good team around you, it is likely that you will find people to support you financially and otherwise, which I have. The problem comes when you realize that fundraising is a permanent process. Just because you've closed a round, the immediate thing that comes to mind for a founder is, oh crap, now according to my calculations, my company might survive the next 10 months, but what happens after that? One option is somehow figure out a way to generate revenue, but that might derail the company's R&D or innovative path. That might require a longer sales cycle, that might require more time to build something worthwhile and project the company, making it a unicorn, hopefully. And that's where the balancing act kind of comes in, where regardless of how much traction you have in the seed, pre-seed, series A round, it does not really matter. It does not matter if you have 100,000 new users, in my opinion. And that is just so because it has become so diluted. The media and every social media channels that you see, where you see posts like, hey, I bootstrapped my company to $1 million, or hey, I acquired 10,000 users within 2 hours, and stuff like that, where every case is different. More so because a lot of the funding that goes to these startups comes from a sense of hype that is created, a sense of FOMO that is created, where investors feel that they are missing out on an opportunity, and hence they turn a blind eye to the metrics, to the real potential, and they turn a blind eye to the fact that the startup may not be as good as it seems. And that level of skepticism skyrockets when it comes to normal founders, especially first time founders like me and all the other companies who have done very well. Of course, the success or failure of a startup is dependent on a lot of factors, some of them internal, most of them external, and hence nobody can predict. Just like nobody can predict how the stock market will go in the future, just like that, nobody can predict how a startup will go, and investors take a best guess based on the metrics, based on their intuition, and based on their gut on who to support. And it's unfortunate that that gut feeling aspect of it relies more towards herd mentality, where everyone is willing to back up a startup that has gained a lot of funding in the past, or has other founders, rather investors in the round, instead of being able to fully support a startup that they have just met, or a startup that is relatively young and trying to do something unique. When startups pitch to founders, it is so easy to poke holes in the business models, to poke holes in the way that they're doing business. It is very easy to find shortfalls in startup when you hear them pitch, because I have been a judge in these pitching competitions, it is very hard to intuitively connect with the founder, to get into their minds, to appreciate the vision, and know for a fact that if an investor were to come aboard, it's not just a financial transaction, but a transaction of trust and belief that the founder knows what he or she is doing, and the founder is fully capable of doing, given the right resources, given the right internal and external factors that be. So overall, I would say that just the fact that I have received so much support from the entrepreneurial community, from the VC community, from the angel community in Kentucky, in the coasts, everywhere, I've been very grateful. But the feeling, the whole process of fundraising is very bitter. It is 99.9% rejection, not just for me, but for everybody. And so in a way, I think it builds character. It makes you appreciate how dynamic things are, and it is just one of those things that keeps up founders at night, just having to have the ability to try out new things and get the funding to get things done. So that's my thoughts on the process of funding and fundraising as a startup founder.